BobbleOn.
Today was a fun day.
Yeah, this is exciting podcast to set up right now because we had an awesome opportunity, and we're jazzed up to share with you guys.
Yeah, special person on the podcast today. His name is Shant Banosian. Most people around here call him the Shant Banosian.
Right, yeah.
He is the #1 producer nationally for mortgage lending.
Yep, out of all loan originators in the entire country, he is #1. He did just under 2,000 loans last year. 75% or more was purchase, not refi. And he just almost hit $1 billion.
That's with a B.
B.
A B.
A B.
Not an M.
Yep,
That's massive.
He's been in the business for 15 years. He started off in a small shop, and then he moved to guaranteed rate 3 or 4 or 5 years later. He's been at guaranteed rate for the last 10 or so, and every single year he's been increasing his business by hundreds of millions. He's gotten to this point.
Shant's gonna take your intro and put it on his bedstand. That was a good one. That was a good recap of his life. But I think what are people gonna get from this podcast? What do we go into, and what should they be listening to?
Well, I think first off, that what I liked about the angle that we took and the lead that you kind of took on this was that we didn't talk about mortgages, we didn't talk about insurance, we didn't talk about referring or anything like that. We really dove deep first in his life and what kind of makes him tick, kind of challenges and fears, failures, his work-life balance, family, etc. Kind of humanized him, in my opinion, made him kind of much more approachable to the listener. And then we dove in a lot more about what drives him and kind of the successes, the failures, and a lot of the ins and outs.
You know what I like about the real estate world in general is I feel like if you go on social media, just about every month or every quarter, someone is #1 in something. It's like, if it's not most closed units, it's like most volume. If it's not most volume, it's like number of millions. There's so many different variables. Shant is your #1 nationally.
Yeah.
And there's no disputing it. It's not at guaranteed rate. It's not because of XYZ product. It's not only purchase, not only refi.
Yeah. Well, we got a chuckle because we were at the IAOA convention in San Diego, and I believe it was Grant who actually had the presentation about how to help your referral partners, talking a lot about midterm certificate refis, et cetera. And he put on the big screen, he showed the list of top producers in the country, and Shant was #1, and I just chuckled about it. He was like, oh, we're going to have him on our podcast in a few weeks.
Pretty cool stuff.
But interviewing anyone who is literally the best in the world at their thing is really helpful, I think, for any audience to feel more empowered. Because a lot of times when we look at someone, like if I looked at, I don't know, Michael Jordan, I would put him on a pedestal and say like, oh my God, this is the greatest basketball player of all time. I could never be Michael Jordan, even if I was 6'8" and was good at basketball. But if you hear Michael Jordan talk in an interview, talking about his habits, talking about what makes him tick, he becomes a human, not the god. And I think this was really helpful to have someone who's at the top of their game talk a lot about what makes them tick and kind of humanize them.
Cool. Well, let's get into it. Let's dive into the interview.
Everybody, we got a good crew out here, but they're feeling the heat a little bit right now. So all good.
But I remember like 3 or 4 years ago, the team felt the heat, and it was almost like just sheer grit and willpower to get through. But now I feel like you guys are much more organized and systematic.
I remember when you guys came in wearing those suits. Like seriously, remember those suits you guys with the Halloween suits you guys had?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That was like I don't know why, but I remember that was like the time where we were like teetering. Like we were growing, but it was like hard.
Yeah.
That was like the time frame where we had to make a decision as to either we're going to grow, or we're going to change, or we're going to change everything the way we're doing it, or cave. You know what I mean? Right, and we grew, but that was probably the hardest. There's been times before that too, but in like the new kind of way of the team, there's always been ceilings we've hit. Probably going through one right now.
Yeah,
well, seriously.
Yeah. Let's start with that then. I want to talk about that part. So I think one of the things that when I look at someone like yourself, being a top producer nationally in mortgages, is your time. You're irreplaceable in the process. You're always going to be the face of the process because of how mortgage works, right? Yeah. But you have a family at home. and you have a wife, you probably want to renew that contract every year.
Yeah.
So work-life balance is such a hot topic, but what is your version? Like, how do you make that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, that's probably, if you were to say, what's your biggest challenge? I'd say time, right? Like it's, whether it's time professionally, personally, that's probably the thing that I've struggled with throughout my career. Whether you're trying to focus in on it personally to kind of make more time for your, I have a wife, I have 3 kids, I want to be involved in the community, see my friends, give time to these guys, give time to my clients, spend time working on my business. That's without question the biggest challenge I've had throughout my career, and probably one of the things I was thinking about in terms of like, hey, what's the biggest failure you've had? Probably from a timing standpoint, like occasionally that's probably the biggest learning experience I've had. It's probably the thing I value the most now that I didn't value back then. Like like I think when you're young in your business, I don't think really anybody values time. Like you just kind of like, I'm just going to work.
It's infinite.
Yeah, you don't realize how important it is. So that's been the thing that I value the most now is my time. I respect my time. I respect other people's time, but I'm still not perfect yet. So, I just do the best I can. I want to be successful at home. I want to be successful at work. And I've learned to become more organized. I've learned to become more consistent with certain practices that I have to keep. I try to be more task-oriented and time blocking and all that kind of stuff. But I've also sacrificed a lot of things that I just don't do anymore. There's a give and a take, right? Like I don't know a whole ton of really successful people that have like mastered both. I'm just gonna be real. Like I don't. At some point there's an imbalance. I guess I'm working really hard I want to kind of work so hard now and be so successful that I can flip it around the other way. And like, that's ultimately like, I think one of the reasons that you try to work so hard and be professionally successful, other than, helping the people that you work with, helping the people that you work with on your team, your clients, your partners, it's also to like, create certain freedoms for yourself, whether it be financially and time-wise in the future, so that way you can do whatever you want, right? And so I'm still trying to figure that part out.
On that, follow-up question on that, do you have any strategies that have worked for you when you leave the office, you go home and you're with your family? Are there any strategies that you use that really allows you to be present with your family?
Yeah, one of the biggest things I've, one, it's like just making sure that I'm actually like in the right mindset where I'm actually thinking about it, like being present. Like it's hard to just kind of transform from like walking in the door to like just like kind of winding down. I only live like a mile away from here, so like I don't even really wind down by the time I get home, but usually if I have a little kind of conversation with myself and like make sure that like, hey, when I'm home, like I'm home. Like and like I find that if I make myself aware of it, like when I'm going in that door, like I try never to walk in the house with my phone anymore on. I used to make that mistake, and my wife doesn't really give me the option anymore. It's like it's pretty hammer time if I walk in with my phone in my ear. But I try to just kind of like when I'm in the driveway, I try to shut it down, think about what I'm gonna do when I get inside. The most success I have when I'm on is like phone's away, tucked away somewhere where I don't see it. I don't see the text coming in, no iWatch on, none of that stuff. And I'm just like present, for my kids, try to play with them, try to get them to bed. It's really hard because, what happens is, so in our routine, my wife works, she's very successful in her own right. So like a lot of times we're both coming home at the same time. And the kids are really fired up to see us. And so their energy level goes from like getting wound down to bed to, it's like, so we just try, we try to embrace it. Like I used to be like, how come you guys just don't want to go to bed? But it's just, they're excited to see us.
Yeah.
Right. So,
What is, on that note, like you've gotten way better in the last, let's say 3-5 years at time management, right?
100%.
What does life look like now at home compared to what life looked like 3-5 years ago? Now you've kind of, I would say, gotten better at time management.
Yeah, so back then, one of the biggest things I've done is like, I've become a morning person, right? So that allows me for like when my kids, like before it was just like I'd wake up at the same time of everybody else, and we'd just kind of all get our day started. I'm usually up now before they're up, and I usually get like an hour, sometimes 2 hours to myself, sometimes 3 hours to myself before anybody even wakes up, which has been awesome. Because then what happens is like I'll get all my stuff out of the way. I'm ready to go. Once they wake up, I'm like ready to just be a dad and help my wife out with getting the kids ready and up and out of school. I usually drop off in the morning 4 days a week anyways, which is cool for me. I love it because I get to spend some time with them, because it's kind of inconsistent when I get home. Sometimes they're getting ready for bed or sleeping.
Sure.
But that morning time is super valuable to me. In terms of at nighttime, it just, I really try to make sure that, I'm home. I try to not plan any activities at night anymore. Like, it's one of the things I've tried to cut out over the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I used to be out like 3-4 nights a week, like networking, all that kind of stuff. Now I try to limit it to one, you know what I mean? And sometimes I do two, but the second one's always like personal, either out with my wife or out with my friends. But I try not to do 2 work events in a week.
That combination probably works really well, because like what we're hearing is you're trying to be better at home, but now you're home more often.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if you have a couple nights that aren't perfect while you're there, as opposed to like being out for 3 or 4 nights a week and the one night you're home not really being there.
Yeah.
It's an epic, we saw that in us as well as you like 4 or 5 years ago. That's the world we were in.
Yeah, I think part of it is like, I think it definitely helps like establishing yourself in the business, your reputation, your referral partners. I found that one of the things that's been really cool to see is like the people I think one of the reasons that we're so successful is that we work with really great people. Like, I love the people that we surround ourselves with, our clients and our referral partners. And I find that the people that we work with, they really respect our time at home. Like, I've gotten so many people, and it's so cool to hear like, hey, if you're home with your family, like I'll call you back. Like, it doesn't need to, nothing's that urgent. And that's like very rewarding to hear, because like your biggest fear as a young person, like, or young in your career, it doesn't matter your age, right? It's like, if I don't take that call,
I'm going to lose this
I'm
relationship.
going to lose that relationship. And like, I've really felt the people that we work with like really have our back, which is kind of cool. Like, I love those little comments, and I try to respect the people that are vendors. Same things. Like, I try not to kind of. I know most of the people we work with like have families and all that stuff, and I try to be really respectful of that, because like I want them. We work so hard to be able to enjoy our family time, and so like it goes by fast. Like, everybody tells you that. So, anyways, it's something I'm totally working on getting better at. I think that when I'm on, my mornings are like, like read, meditate, go to the gym. And, I haven't gotten into like journaling or any of that kind of stuff. It's like one of the things I want to work on, because I know a lot of people that do and are really into it. But those are the 3 things. If I start up, read, meditate, gym, I'm kicking ass that day. And it just kind of gets my focuses right, both professionally and personally, for the whole day. When I'm off, I'm getting away from those things a little bit, right? And you just try to be aware when you're kind of falling apart. I'm probably on like 75% of the time, and I'm off 25% of the time, and that 25% I'm off is what I use to learn and to motivate me to get back on and just kind of keep rolling. You know what I'm saying?
The interesting takeaway from that is, a lot of what I read isn't necessarily the volume of time you spend with the people that matter. It's the quality during that time, right? So it could be a half hour a day versus 4 hours. That half hour could be so much more valuable.
Yeah.
But that 2 minutes or 1 minute in your car right before you walk in is probably the most important time, because you got to become present and mindful and intentional when you walk in.
Yeah.
And the time before they wake up in the morning is like really critical. So those are 2 takeaways. Staying on family, and a great question that Zach had come up with earlier. What's one characteristic you mirrored or adopted from your parents that you think has really helped you in your career as a professional?
So, a lot. So, my parents were immigrants. They came here in the 70s, right? So I was born here in the U.S. I was the first one in my family. And they my mother actually went to high school here in the U.S. Towards the end, and my dad had already graduated college and came here. But it was, they had to both start from scratch, right? Like, English is their second language, but they raised, I was born kind of right away, and off they had to go, So hard work, I think, is one of those things. Like, there wasn't like a lot of like complaining about like, woe is me, this is stressful, this is whatever. It's just like, hey, this is like, we've got to go make it happen. And like, and an appreciation for like, look, one of the things that I really picked up from them is like, this is a really great country to live in, and like, you can make whatever you want of yourself. Like, there's no limits in terms of like the potential, which is really cool. And I have some really good friends that are that have come here from other countries, and like they kick ass, and it's like and they have all the reasons in the world not to, and they do. So it's like, appreciation for the opportunities that are here is super important. Hard work. One of the things is like, it's been embedded in me, and I'm thankful that it's still embedded in me. Like, you're not entitled to shit, right? Like, and I hope it's okay, I swear on your podcast, but like, there's not like a sense of entitlement that like, and I've kind of always said that, like, sometimes, entitlement's like one of the things that takes like really great people down. I've seen people kind of like really have a lot of success, and then all of a sudden they start kind of like reading their own clips, and like, patting themselves on the back, and like, I've never done that.
How do you avoid entitlement? Because you, of all people,
you have the right to look at rankings and say to yourself, oh, number one again.
Yeah.
How do you avoid entitlement?
It's, I'm like, I've always kind of been like, hey, what I've accomplished in the past, it's cool. I'm proud of it and it's awesome. But like, ultimately if that ended tomorrow and I did nothing going forward, then like, it's just all about what you're going to do in the future.
So you kind of get sucked into the day almost.
Yeah, sucked into like, just like, I'm not so much concerned about, I'm much more concerned about the future than I am the past, I guess. Because the past's already written at that point. So like, how many people, like I don't want to be one of those people that like, I'm sure, I couldn't even tell you some of the past great loan officers, right? Like, I don't even know who they are because if they're not killing it right now, I have no idea who they are, right? Like, and so like, or like whatever it is, like, and I'm also motivated by like, I don't know. I use sports in all my analogies, but like there's a lot of teams that are great for a very long time, like those dynasties, right? And there's other teams that will come and just win all of a sudden and disappear. I just don't want to be that person that disappears. So like I find that a lot of times like what worked for me in the past isn't necessarily going to work for me in the future. The business has evolved so fast already in just a short amount of time that I've been doing it. So I'm like so focused. Like I don't know. I guess I'm not really too caught up about what we've accomplished already. I'm more just focused about what I'm
Staying
learning.
on a sports analogy, because this ties in, then we know a lot. I mean, I don't think there's a successful person in any industry or any profession that isn't got some element of competition.
Yeah.
But that there's the tennis player competitive. I'm going to try to beat you and be better than you. Then there's the golfer competitor who's like, I'm trying to always be better than myself.
Yeah.
And play against the course.
And play against the course, right? Yeah. And you're focusing on the future and always expanding and growing. Yeah. Do you find yourself leaning in one direction or the other as a motive for that expansion?
So tennis player or golfer, you said?
Those are two sports that probably shouldn't have picked for you.
Yeah, so I used to be decent at golf.
Competitive against others, or is it really about getting better yourself?
No, so I mean, so look, it's about getting better yourself. I think that motivates me, just because like I can't control what like, I respect our competition. We have a lot of really great competition, both nationally, locally, companies, individuals, all that kind of stuff. I think that I just focus on me because that's what I can control, right? So like I've learned from others. I learned from others not only in our industry, from people outside. I've learned from you guys. You got your partners, but also you guys are doing a lot of the same things that we strive to do in our business, but totally different businesses, right? But in a lot of ways the same. But I'm just focused on what we can do.
Really. That's interesting. Yeah. So you kind of just. And then that may be why you soared. One of the reasons you did is because you're really not trying to focus on what other people are doing and adopting it. What you're doing is looking internally and saying, tomorrow's got to be better. Next week's got to be better, right?
Yeah, look, when I look at other people that are having success, I look at like, hey, what are they doing? And then some of the things they're doing, I would be comfortable with and I can make my own and improve upon or just like adopt. Other things, I'm like, that wouldn't work for us. Like, it's just not a good fit. Either I don't think I can implement it, I wouldn't want to implement it, it wouldn't feel right. So I've learned a ton from people at my company, on our team, competitors, all that kind of stuff. But you can only control yourself. Like it's I've learned that pretty quickly. And I would say what I do like, if you're using a sports analogy, like if I'm going to do this, and we are, I've proven that like I want to do it not by myself. I've always been a team sports kind of guy, like my whole life, and so I want to do it. And that's half the reason that I've not half the reason. The reason that I built a team around me is because like I'd much rather do it with a group of people that are supporting each other, that are winning together. One of our core values is win as a team. Like that's it's important to us, and it's important to me. And so I don't think I'd be really happy just like, we talk about this a lot when I do some coaching for in the mortgage business, and like I'm not interested in being like a loan officer. And to me, like loan officer, other than just obviously selling mortgages, is like a salesperson, right? Like I don't want to be an individual contributor loan officer. Like I kind of look at myself as a CEO of Team Shant Banosian, right? And the brand that we've created. And to me, that's way more fulfilling. I enjoy it. It's got many different challenges. Sales is one part of it. We're working on sales, operations, marketing, branding, customer service, client retention. It allows me to be a visionary. It allows me to, focus on the future. I learn about the business. So I'm not just like very transactional. That is empowering to me. It's fulfilling to me. It's really important to me to be able to work as hard and as fast as I do. the only way I could do it is if I remain passionate about what I'm doing. And so that part of it is the part that kind of really grabs my attention and fuels my passion for what we're doing. If I was doing it by myself, honestly, there's only so many transactions. I would get bored. Now, there's a lot of people out there that have great careers that are doing it that way. It just wouldn't fly for me. I have all the respect in the world for the success they're having. Everybody kind of has a different thing.
Well, you ultimately reach a ceiling. That ceiling you've chosen to just be higher with a larger team. That's it. It's just a different. One off script, it just came to my mind. We live in such a crazy digital world right now, where disruption and digital is on everyone's top of mind everywhere. Click funnels and all kinds of. One of the things I really love about your growth and your success to date is it's mainly based on relationships. Yeah, you've gotten into social, there's a lot of digital stuff you guys do, which is awesome, but really, like, you built your business, your career off of relationships. When did you realize, kind of in your journey, that relationships was a key component of your future? I think very early on we did. I think that's the foundation of our business. However, I think what was key was not getting away from that and not kind of buying into like the technology is going to change everything, and you have to get away from just kind of go, like some people just go so heavy into technology and they forget about, like, without those relationships, you got no technology to use if you got nothing to put into it. So I think what with technology is, we've adopted technology and we grab all those tools and we make them ours, and it allows us to further enhance relationships. If I can do something, if I can automate some systems and I can do things that used to take me a half hour and do those in 5 minutes now, or if I can make the service level, all it does is, I think one of the greatest things technology and the growth of my team has done is allow me to do more in one day. So like I can do things now that I couldn't do when I was a solo producer because I had to do everything. Now, we've streamlined a lot of processes. Technology makes the process from a mortgage standpoint better, allows us to stay in communication with our referral partners better. It automates some things, but it also just frees up more time. So I can do so much more in one day. So we've totally adopted technology, but only to enhance the relationship piece that we did. And it's the lifeblood of our business. Those relationships make your business, I don't want to say recession-proof is probably not the right word. Sustainable?
But it makes it sustainable. It just makes it like, the market fluctuations don't really impact. Like we had 2018 in general for the mortgage business wasn't a great year. It was the best year we ever had. And then because 2018 was so great, it made 2019 that much better when rates came down last year. And it's going to make 2020 our best year yet. But this business, I think what's going to happen in our business personally, and technology disrupts every business, right? But you got to use it for what it's going to. I personally think the mortgage business is going to turn into, it's going to be harder and harder and harder for, and this is my personal opinion, I think you're going to see less and less loan originators doing 1, 2, or 3 loans a month, and I think it's going to consolidate the business in a way that you've got to be big relationship people, big producers. I think the hardest thing in any business, your business, my business, is making the phones ring, making the emails come in, driving leads, right? Like, I think that's one of the hardest things you can do is just get the leads coming in. We've done a really good job of that, and it's because of the relationships that we have. We work with some really amazing partners and clients, and they're the lifeblood of our business.
Our listeners need to rewind and listen to that like 3 or 4 times, because we've been talking about that for years in our industry around the country. Like, yes, you have to have great systems. You really need to have the right people. You need to have the best processes in the world. And there's time and place, and it takes time to really get good at that. Yeah. But if you are not building the relationships that are driving in the opportunities, it doesn't matter how good you are internally.
You could have the best processes in place, and you could have the most technical loan originator in the world. But if the phone doesn't ring, consistently, or the emails or leads aren't coming in, so so I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a bunch of, you're already starting to see it. There's more and more big producers across our business, and I think that's going to keep happening. Look, I never thought, realistically, I never thought when we first started out that we'd be doing the kind of volume that we're doing. Now that we're doing it, and every year this happened, now that we're doing it, I can see how we could totally do more. Faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, we heard a quote a while back when we were first starting to get in the relationships game, that relationships are the most important off-book asset, because you can't quantify a relationship. And what we realized early on was it's in the very, very early on, Matt and I would be out there being like, just try us, you'll love us,
Yeah.
you know, and then we realized it's a little bit more than the process.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're touching on a lot here. It's like the process here is great,
Yeah.
but it's also pretty good elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of mortgage lenders who figured out process, and maybe even online companies,
Yeah.
but they can't figure out the relationship game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you guys heard me say it a few times. We're super fortunate. Like, I feel like the people that we're partnered up with, those relationships and the clients, like, they genuinely want to see us have success, which is like a great feeling. Like, they want us to do well. They want us to work with their clients. They want us to be involved in their home transactions. And you can't put a number on that. You know?
I think you've shown it, and what we've seen from you is you kind of lead with vulnerability. Like, people know your wife's name. They know how many kids you have. They know that you're local, right?
Yeah.
And it takes guts to do that. And I think that's why they're okay with not talking to you late at night, is because they know, like, the old age thing is like happy wife, happy life. Well, that's kind of crap. It's more like happy can be bought sometimes. Like it's way more prolonged happiness. I think that's what Matt and I work on. It's really fun to hear you talk in the beginning about your journey to be more present at home.
Yeah,
because then
something I'm working on every single day.
You're way more present with your referral partners if you're present at home.
Yeah, 100%.
As opposed to like walk. I know how many times do we like walk out in the backyard and talk to a referral partner back in the day?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna go get something outside.
Or just walk in the door with the phone on the ear. I think that's one of the biggest changes I had to make. Is just like, wow, that first impression was real every single day. Seeing me walk in with the phone on my ear, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's just like it's funny how I can see. You know, I remember we had our first kid, and it was the first one, right? And it was like it was first, so it was there for everything, right? Like home, 5:30, all that kind of stuff. And then like the business blew up, and then we had Stella, and I like wasn't around as much, and that was like really, really like I didn't even realize it was happening just because like it was growing. We had two, it was craziness, and then And then like a year went by, and I was like, "Holy cow!" I was like, you know, I really haven't been around that much. Like I've been home, but like it was just like that was like when our business like really went from like doing like $100 million to like $300 and $400 million. It was like going crazy, and then so it was crazy how like even just the relationship between the two kids was different because like how much more present I was at home with one versus the other, and it was something that I like still work on to this day with her because like you know it's you didn't want to make, and then we had the third one and I was like, all right, I got to get this right, and then so you know just being real, it's
That's good.
so it's a challenge that. You know that I think with any working parents, like my like I said, my wife's really really successful. She's got a great career and she's passionate about what she does as well. So it's like we're constantly just talking about like she does a great job of holding me accountable, which is awesome, and I need it. It's but it's like without that, just constantly just reminding me and each other like what's really important, right? And life events happen all the time. And it keeps things real. So you just got to make sure that like time doesn't go by so fast.
I want to touch quickly on leadership, because I think anyone can Google and find out like, oh, you get a certain number of people on your team and that's grown. They can find out quickly how many loans you've done and how that's grown, and you can see that all on paper. But ultimately, you've had to grow as a leader. Can you pinpoint any like characteristic or leadership quality that you've identified in the last 3 to 5 years that you've worked on and it's improved and it's helped your team, helped your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think being vulnerable, like you were saying, like that's probably one of the things that's like, talk about something that's like out of my comfort zone. Like that's not like, like it's not one of the things that like you learn about in school. Like it's I think realizing that, as you don't really need to be when you have like one or two people that work with. I mean, I guess you should always be, but like as the team gets bigger and like different roles and different responsibilities on the team, like I think understanding what kind of everybody wants and what everybody needs, and kind of filling everybody's bucket in terms of stuff that that's been a challenge as we get busier, kind of making sure that we're doing that. I think just like being self-aware. I think sometimes. We're very much like a startup or a small business. Like even though we work for this, huge parent company, we're a company within the company, and I think that, you wear a lot of hats. So sometimes you get really stuck on just kind of being in the business. So I mean, one of the biggest things I think that has helped the team grow is like me actually stepping out of the business sometimes, not all the time, but stepping out of the business and having like clarity breaks and like working on things and being able to work on the vision and trying to improve the team. Because if you don't do those type of things, then all of a sudden, the business just starts stalling out. And you're just kind of doing transaction after transaction.
I think one of the reasons why the vulnerability might work for you is because you go a little bit deeper than vulnerability, and I'll explain what I mean.
Yeah.
I think vulnerability is pay for play, and a lot of times. Vulnerability is like, it doesn't really impact me, but I'm going to share how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you go to a deeper level, which some people consider what's like scars. Because scars actually, like, people lean forward and they'll almost want to hear more. And when you talked about the difference between your two kids and how you caused it, like, that's a scar.
Yeah.
That's you being completely vulnerable. And so you share that with your team, I imagine.
Yeah.
And like, when you kind of share that with your team about the difference in your two kids and how you think you may have caused some of that, like, I feel like they'd run through a wall for you.
Yeah, it's like, it's 100%. I was... It's definitely one of the things that, like, I feel like my team knows my family pretty well, and then but we've grown so fast. There's a lot of people that don't. Like, my original core people that are on the team, like, my family was like super involved in like everything in the business, and like, my dad's in here once a day probably. Like, he'll probably pop in now and interrupt this, but I think, yeah, you're 100% right. Like, I could do actually much better job of sharing all that kind of stuff. I think, a lot of times these guys just see like we're just hard charging, working on the business, but I could definitely, be better even with that in terms of sharing like what's going on, what my motivation is for like what I'm doing, why we're pushing so hard. I think I could actually do a way better job of sharing that stuff with my team for sure.
What do you think on your team? What do you think really kind of drives them to want to be part of this team, and like what excites them about being associated with this?
Yeah, it's a good question. We do a really good job of talking about kind of what our goals are, what our motivations are. I think there's a certain, you've got to always find the right people that are, the right people in the right seats, on the right team, right? So like what might work, there's a lot of really great people that might not be a good fit for us, and there's a lot of people that are. I think, these guys like being a part of a winner. I think there's nobody in here that like, doesn't like working hard. I think that, we've done a much, much better job hiring and staffing with like the right people, because we've made some mistakes in the past, right? Like, we've definitely hired people that really great people, good character, just not a good fit for like where we're going and what we're trying to do every single day. But these guys are motivated, I think, because our culture's improving. We're definitely like, that's not something like, you didn't have to think about culture, right? Like 5 years ago, it was just like, there's like, it's the things that I think about now every single day are not topics of conversation that we had 5 years ago, even because
even with 5 or 6 people, you can control it so much
because
more.
You're talking to everybody all day.
Yeah, everyone feels connected a lot more. You get to 25 plus people, culture takes on a form of its own.
Yeah, and it's like you said, I think in any work and anything you do, you definitely certainly learn more by your failures than I think by your successes. I do anyways. And as we've grown, there's definitely been things that I've missed that I've gone back and I'm like, I should have fixed that. But I wasn't even aware sometimes, or I just was like so focused on something else that, a problem arises that you just go on and jump on and fix. But I think the team, like I said, likes being a part of success, likes that we're constantly tweaking and trying to improve processes. I think they like helping people. I think bottom line, like what we're doing is pretty rewarding every single day. It's not, there's something cool just about helping people buy their first house or being part of their real estate. Like I still enjoy it. Like it's fun for me when I'm talking clients. I just got off the phone with some clients that bought a house 6 months ago. And we were just talking about like vacations and all this kind of stuff. And like, my phone's ringing like off the hook. And I just like was like really interested in what they had going on. They were interested in what I was doing. So I think the people aspect of it in terms of just like getting to know our clients. Some of our clients now have come back to us like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's crazy how much repeat business we're doing people. And like, those are actually, it's funny, not that I don't appreciate the people that we're doing business with now, but like those, I have a special affinity for those clients that kind of gave us a shot when like nobody knew who they were. It's like, it's a little bit easier to market ourselves now. Like, we're reputable in the business. We've got a proven track record. So like, it's easier to get your foot in the door with somebody and, talk to a client and be like, hey, listen, here's who we are, here's what we've done. A lot of times the person that's recommended to them was like, already kind of helping, establish a credibility of who we are before we talk to them. Back then, we were like, we didn't really know what we were doing. We definitely didn't have a brand or a reputation, but we worked really hard, we cared. And, And so like anytime my clients call me from like that 2011, 2012, it's weird. I can tell you where they bought, where they live, what kind of rate they had, what kind of program. Like it's just like, there's just like something weird about like that affinity that I have for those people. And they haven't gone anywhere. They've stayed with us all the way through. They're our biggest supporters, which is pretty cool. You know, you guys, I've talked to you guys about like, you know, raving fans and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, that's real. You know, the most powerful business is like, we have salespeople on our team and we have business development and all that stuff, but the most powerful group of people that we have that really, you know, coming back is like those people that refer us. There's thousands of salespeople out there that are working for us for free that are just, you know, trust us, like us, know that we have their best interests at heart, know that we work hard for them, and they're out there referring all their clients to us. Their friends, their family, and we're getting, you know, every single day, it's like, you know, and they're happy to do it, and they don't want anything else in return other than just like making sure we take care of their friends or their family. And that's all I can ask for. And say thank you, yeah, of course. Which is awesome. Like I never thought we'd be in a position where, like, you know, I mean, I guess that's what we were working towards, but I didn't think it was going to happen so soon.
The compound effect really does take place.
That's real.
But it's something that you never foresee early on. You don't look ahead and say like, oh, that's going to help me. You just focus on the relationships, and you do a good job and keep growing, and ultimately they will. You know, that comes around, and it kind of hit us too. Like a year ago, we looking at, you know, where our business is coming from, and all of a sudden we realized like half our business is coming from our existing client base.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way. You know, never considered that.
I never did either. You know, and it's awesome. I'm so grateful for it. And we've got some really awesome clients.
You've touched on. I just want to come back to this one sec. You've touched on how your role has changed. Specifically, you know, you used to go out 4 or 5 nights a week, and we know that life too.
Yeah.
And scaling that back. Obviously, over the course of the last 10, 12, 15 years, you've had to change your role even more. You've had to streamline what you do. And how have you decided what to keep on your plate versus what to hand off?
Yeah. So, you know, the one thing I've realized is that the biggest thing I can do to help grow our business is just like hire really awesome people on the team and let them flourish in their roles, right? So like, there's only so much that I can do. There's only so much that I know. There's only so many things that I'm good at, but I have some really awesome people on my team that we brought in. And every year I feel like we make 1 or 2 key hires that like have really helped us grow. So I've spent more time, you know, focused on where we need to grow and working with those people to help them be really great at their jobs, give them more responsibility. You know, I'm still on the phone with clients every single day, so that's not one of the things that I've given up yet. It's just, it's, you know, one of the things that I don't know how that'll evolve, you know, eventually. But
maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's people ask me all the time, do you talk to your clients? I'm like, yeah, I talk to more clients than anybody else.
I think that's actually one of the things that we've heard over the years that we have to dispel on your behalf. Not because just because we know the truth and that oh well, he never talks to his clients. And it's like, well, actually, couldn't be further from the truth. Like we know that you do, and every single one of them hears from you. Yeah,
it's important to me. So I've freed up other things. That, like, you know, again, there's a lot of things that I don't have to do anymore because I have really great staff members and team members that are like, you know, kicking butt doing those things better than I would do it. You know, it's like, you know, I'm fortunate because I genuinely like talking to my clients. I like working with them. I like doing all that stuff. So like I'm trying to every single day and every single week and quarter and month, like I'm trying to always work on things that I'm really good at and that I'm passionate about. And then I try to give away the things that I'm not, things that bore me, things that I don't do a good job at, things that other people could do better. I try to, you know, give those roles and responsibilities because I want every part of the process, no matter what it is, to have somebody that's actually wants to be working on that stuff and is pretty good at that part of the process. So the things that I've like from a loan originator standpoint, I've completely stepped out of operationally, like what happens, like once the loan's sold. I feel like I do so much upfront to pretty much almost eliminate any issues that could happen. But there's always stuff that comes up. But I have an amazing operations team that, like, world-class, you know, industry leading that handles all that stuff for me. So fortunately, I don't have to jump in. And honestly, those people do a better job for my clients and my referral partners than I would if I was to jump in anyways. I work, you know, pretty hand in hand with my team, operations, business development, marketing, and sales to kind of help making sure we're improving training, process, and all those type of things.
On that, like, there's a ton of crossover there.
Yeah,
okay, now insurance agents, lending, even conveyance, there's a lot of shared about that. Yeah. Like, I think in those 3 firms, as well as financial advisors, they want to talk directly to the client, and they want a lot of other things to be handed off that. But question for you on that, like, in 3 weeks from now, what's like something you're going to do that's just tick off your team? Because there's so much involvement. Like
Yeah.
you probably tick them off every now and then for something you do. Like what is it that, like, what's your most common faux pas?
Oh, wow. Good question. You know, it's, yeah, I mean, I don't know. 3 weeks from now, huh?
Well, like, yeah, so like, what
Give me
would
an
you-
example of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, in your profession, what you do,
Yeah.
I feel like you're so hands-on with your clients. And so for the team, they're going to depend on a lot of note sharing. They're
Yeah.
going to depend on a lot of you letting go of the vine.
Yeah.
They're going to depend on them taking something from start to finish and feeling confident taking start to finish. A lot of people listening now, they don't hire the teams because they don't feel like they can let go of some of the vine.
Yeah.
So like, I imagine you're okay with ticking people off every once in a while and like just amending the relationship because you're like, hey, mea culpa.
Yeah. I mean, so we've done, one of the things that we've really, and we just had a little quick powwow as a team before we jumped in here. It's just like, volume's gone way up right now, right? Like we're in the middle of a refinance boom going on. And it's been going on for quite some time, but like it's like really stepped it up just in the last couple of days. And so the processes and systems that we had in place 2 or 3 weeks ago, or not 2 and 3 weeks ago, but for the last few months, as we've been doing a great job and having a lot of success in terms of record new volume and our service level has been great, is going to have to change again, right? Like what we thought we were ready going into the spring market is not. So like I need to figure out like, all this refi demand that's happening, like how are we going to address that? Before I would have handled all that stuff or handled a large majority of it, but we got a massive refinance boom going on. And at the same time, spring market just kicked off, right? And so we've got to, you've got to be there for all those type of people. You got to be there for your refinance clients. You got to be there for and your referral partners and your people that are buying a home right now and have to do it pretty quickly. So I don't know, like 1 or 2 things. I just know we're constantly evolving our systems and our processes. And I generally, from when I start getting involved in stuff that I shouldn't be in, these guys are pretty good about telling me. Like, there's not a lot of our communication lines are pretty brutally honest. Like. And we get together all the time, and I get direct feedback on like, hey, what do you need me not doing? What do you need me doing more of? And what do you need me doing less of? So I don't feel like we get very far, like too far on where I'm not hearing from somebody. Like I don't feel like I take stuff over that I shouldn't be that all of a sudden I need to get out of.
I think you just answered it then.
Agreed too.
If you're consistently, weekly, daily, whatever, getting feedback from them and you're open and asking for that, like, hey, where do I need to step off? Where do I need to step in? How can I improve the relationship and our communication? That's it, right? Because it's never perfect.
It's never, and like we're not, so, I've said it a bunch of times to, in trainings with like, within the company and in the industry and stuff like that, like you can't expect, all of us, like when we started our business and we still make mistakes every single day, right? Like, I think I've hired the right people because like I make mistakes every day. They're going to make mistakes every single day. Ultimately, if we're like coaching and training through those processes, if you've hired the right people, they have the right attitude, right ability, they're going to like learn from those mistakes and also implement. You can't. I think what too many people make mistakes of: hire people, give them a responsibility, either don't coach them or train them, and just expect them to figure out, which is not realistic. Like nobody did. Like you have to have training and processes in place, and then you have to be okay with like if you're going to give stuff off, that the people that do it learn from experiences as well, and that's going to allow everybody to grow and thrive.
That's how you did too.
Yeah, it's just because we did. It's not like I wish I could say we just kind of figured it all out, but it's not reality in any type of business. I mean, that's why some of the biggest organizations in the world, they probably got there through having the world's best training and processes, or else you can't grow. And obviously have really amazing people, but that's definitely is when you have 5 people, you don't really have a lot of trainings and processes because you're constantly just.
Give me that. Give me that. Take this. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, but I think just having constant open communication, constantly understanding that your process is going to evolve, and what worked for you last year and what worked for you the year before is not going to work for you going forward. Our business changed so much, like in terms of just how the market changes, how the environment changes in terms of rates. Whether you go from purchase to refi, you just have to stay super nimble.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I kind of avoided answering your question in detail, but
I think you gave an answer to a question because the reason why I asked the question is because I think a lot of people fear building a team because they want to be involved.
Yeah.
But I think you answered the question for them by saying like, I make mistakes every day on that.
Yeah.
Here's how I amend it without getting to the level of like, I don't want to work with Shant anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key for them, is just to understand that if you have a weekly meeting process, daily meeting process, whatever the case may be, you can avoid a lot of problems just from hard work.
Yeah, like I said, I use sports analogies so much. So like any team, like everybody's got their role, and the team only works if everybody's really, really great at their role. And you don't have a lot of, like on any kind of team, like whether any type of sports, you don't have a lot of people like doing multiple roles, right?
Very few Matthew Slater.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and even him, if you put him in at quarterback, you'd have a big problem.
True.
Yeah. So like, and it's so I don't know. It's just we try to have. I find it that if we have a bunch of specialists on the team that are really, really great at that part of the process, and then you have to have a bunch of people that can do a little bit of everything. But
utility players.
Yeah, utility players. Yeah, those are important. But I think.
But to synthesize some of what you just said, I think bringing it in, like the structure to elicit consistent feedback and communication critical. Finding people that are going to be so much better at their job than you are, who actually want to do it. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
A lot of people look at, I got to expand my team, I just got to hire talented people. Well, that talent better align with the actual role that they want.
100%.
Otherwise they're going to be misaligned.
One big learning experience for me throughout my career was like, I think it's just, I don't know if it's inexperience or human nature, whatever it is, but like looking back, I always used to just be like, I think a lot of salespeople do it, or whether it's realtors or you just want to hire like just a bunch of salespeople, like people like you, and that's like generally like the last thing on earth you need.
Kiss
like
of death.
it doesn't work, right?
I heard someone talk about this specific point, where he said the reason that failed is because he self-sabotaged the company. And the reason why he said that was because he was like, I never wanted to hire a salesman who was better than me. Wow. And it was a really powerful statement because he was like, I let down my investors, I let down the leadership because I was in charge of this and I never wanted to hire someone who was better than me. But you avoid that problem when you're able to hire a team to work with you.
Yeah.
Is you actually want people smarter than you.
Yeah.
Because then they have a job.
Yeah, 100%.
Heaven forbid they just take exactly what you did and do it, because then it's not going to be good.
There's nothing more empowering or freeing than like when, as a business owner, like you give off something that you would have normally handled, or a certain, you give something away to somebody and they do such a great job, and then you get that call from everybody being like, that person was awesome, thanks so much. Like, or like, I love probably way more than I like getting good feedback about myself is like when I like getting great feedback about my team. I mean, there's no better feeling. Yeah. And it's just like, it gets you motivated and gives you more fuel to kind of.
I send him a text every morning saying he's awesome, but he never replies.
It's cool. We get reviews all the time, and they mention the people on the team. Yeah. My referral partners mention the people that is out working with them. Like, that's super rewarding. It feels good. It's like, it's motivating to try to get more of those type of people. And people, the most back-ended compliment I ever get from my competitors is like, you're only so successful because of the team that you have. And I'm like, yeah. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. Thank you. Like, it's not, there's only, it's like, if I had a team like that, well, like, what, like I hope that you can't build a team as good as like, and I mean that in a good way. Like I have some really talented people on my team. And it's not easy to find. It's not easy to kind of cultivate, but we've had some success. I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Last question.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And then Zach wants to throw in some. I don't think there's a person in the world who just doesn't have any fear at all. There's actually the guy who climbed the mountain. What was his name?
I watched
Let's
that.
say a free solo, whatever.
Free solo.
But maybe if it's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's off his rocker.
Yeah.
But that guy doesn't have fear. Okay, putting him aside,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone. And I know I have fears, you have fears.
Yeah,
And those things have changed too
Yeah.
over the years. So what I was fearful of 15 years ago is different than now. Do you have any fears right now that you feel you need to work on, or drives you, or screw it, it fuels you and it works?
Yeah, I mean, just obviously a fear of time going by too fast and like having regrets in terms of things that you didn't do and experiences they could have had for sure. Mostly, it's like everybody tells you like you hear from your parents and friends and all that stuff, like time goes by so fast, and it's true. Like once you start having kids, I didn't realize time. The first thing everybody told me when I had kids is like, appreciate it, it's going to go by really, really fast. And then you're like, yeah, whatever, And then all of a sudden it's like, hits you right in the face. It's like, holy cow, like it really goes faster than even people like you would have thought. So certainly it's just like things moving so fast that like you don't appreciate some of the blessings that we have. In terms of, natural fears, like, I like being successful. I'm motivated by, there's a sense of pride that we have in terms of like in terms of professionally, I would say, somebody like, being better than us, right? Like I'm competitive. Like I know that when we got into the business, there was a lot of people better than us, and we kind of caught. And I know there's people back there coming for us, right? Like that's motivating. That we become, I would say fear is like, how do we stay relevant, and how do we stay innovative and like stay ahead of the competition? So professionally, I just want to stay better.
That's good. Like his biggest fear is like other people starting and trying to take his business. So he's like, and that's motivating to be better. So he's backhandedly saying that all of y'all who are like starting and trying to make you better are just making me stronger.
They do though.
It's like pizza to Teenage Mutant Ninja
It's
Turtles.
Tiger. I mean, anyone at that level,
You're
or
so
Jordan,
right.
or anyone, right, or Kobe. Like anyone that's at that level in their game, they work so hard to get there that it would be such a shame if they didn't stay there. So it's almost.
Did you
as
ever think
motivating
that like there'd be a better golfer than Tiger Woods? And not
at that time.
Not at the time, right? Like I remember, like, and the fact that like somebody there is now, right? Like he still wins occasionally, right? He won last year, but like, I mean, you can talk about injury and all that stuff, but like people figured out his game, what made him great, physically, emotionally, psychologically, all that
talked about
stuff.
how he didn't work. It was injury a little bit, but it was also. Listen, we're not going to diagnose him per se, but he clearly wasn't very present at home.
Yeah.
And it clearly caught up and bit him at a really tough time. And then you combine injury with family problems, and all of a sudden, everyone's been working so hard, took the top spot.
Yeah, but like he changed the game in terms of like the way golfers train, and like all this stuff. Like I mean, look at physically what those guys look like today versus what they looked like 10 years ago, and he was a big part of that, right? Like he was doing things to like, I would say that he moved. And I'm not even a big golf guy, so like I don't know how we're talking about Tiger Woods right now. But like
it's about Ronnie Coleman or something. Eight-time Olympian.
But like like all those, there's always somebody that figures it out, and there's always people that like figure out what they figured out and do it better, right? So like that's certainly motivating to me. Is that like I'm not naive enough to think there's not thousands and thousands of people trying to figure out that what we're doing and how to try to do it better. So we're just trying to stay one step ahead of it. Professionally, that's probably one of my. But it's a motivating fear.
It's a healthy fear.
Yeah, I mean, it's
You're saying what you're good at out loud for everyone to hear.
Yeah.
I think that's. We've met with so many people who are at the top of their game, and they're like a little bit unwilling to share their secret sauce.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, we have a best in class process.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? Best in class process. I mean, is it fast? Is it like? Do you have like a lot of minions calling? What is it? What does that mean? And to whom? Because Rocket Mortgage or Geico might be best in class process. I don't know. I don't understand all that. But I think you sharing out loud that you are at the top of your game because of your team and because of the team you assemble and continue to assemble. Yeah. It's like, here's the formula. Go do. Yeah. Go figure it out.
Yeah. I mean,
it gives a lot of hope to people out there too. I think that there could be a lot of Shant Banosian 2.0s if they just figure out how to build a team.
Yeah,
the right way.
Yeah, it's. I agree. I mean, nothing we've done is like we've just learned from like watching and doing and making mistakes and having successes and all that stuff. And it's and you're seeing a bunch of different teams out there that are having a lot of success too. I think, and then personally, it's the time thing, man. It's like there's just it's like your health, all that kind of stuff. Like you just never know, right? Like the whole thing with Kobe was like a big, it was like a massive, like it's just it was like something like that. Like, and I've had other stuff personally. Like we lost a really good friend of ours last year, and it's just like it just makes you realize like how much you can't. And I'm 100% at fault for it. I do take things for granted sometimes like that. Everybody, I think sometimes we all take our health for granted and time for granted, and then you just see crazy stuff. I don't know. I took my family to Turks and Caicos. We went on a really awesome school vacation. We had the best trip of our lives. Like we had so much fun. And then you see a family that unfortunately from Massachusetts went down to Disney World, and they didn't come back as a family. And it's like it's crazy, right? Yeah. And it's like that's like so it just you just gotta appreciate what you have, and like I got to do a better job of spending more time with my family and enjoying those experiences together.
It's funny because we probably both we both agree with you, and a lot of people listening would agree with you too. Is like time, and the fear of not capitalizing on the time personally. Yeah. But your professional fear and your personal fear compete against each other.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's what it is.
And that's the balance. That's the whole work-life balance thing. That's why it's such a hard thing to get right. Is that you've got this major motivator over here that's competing with your major motivator here.
Yeah, and it's I got to imagine that's I read a lot about like people that are successful, people that have had major life events and all that kind of stuff, and those are like. It's a challenge, right? Like if it was easy, everybody would kind of have everything perfected and figured out, and like, but you know, I'm pretty young in my career. I still got a long runway in front of us in terms of like what we're hoping to accomplish, what I'm hoping to accomplish, just like you guys. And there's going to be a lot of life lessons along the way. I mean, that's why those like memoirs about really successful people are so interesting, because they go through crazy stuff, right? Yeah. And fortunately, I've been really fortunate in the sense that like there hasn't been a lot of crazy in my life. Like it's been pretty kind of boring in Manila, but like
we'll keep it that way.
Yeah. But you know, you just just try to. So I'm just trying to be open and honest with you guys in terms of like the questions you ask. So rather than just BSing you and say world-class process, you know, I don't know. I think we have a pretty good process.
No, but we really appreciate it.
The fact that #1 loan officer in the country. It's the start of the spring market, which is crazy, and we just had a crazy rate drop, and the refi boom is going to be nuts.
Yeah,
the fact
about a half hour ago.
The fact you gave us half hour. The fact you gave us an hour at this particular moment, really appreciate it.
It's really my pleasure. This is awesome. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, bud.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.